Isn't that fun looking? It's green and it's silver. Totally worth it. So if you've been watching this channel for the last year or so, you know that I really, really love the Nikon ZF. It is a camera that is very near and dear to my heart. And funnily enough, it's a camera that the first time I saw it and tried it, I didn't really like all that much. I didn't love the feel of it. I thought it was a lot of compromises in certain ways, but honestly, that was before I even tried it. That was just like picking it up for a couple minutes and thinking about it. So now with the new Nikon ZF Silver edition, and I've got the green one here, I've got a couple thoughts that I just want to share when it comes to this camera. What's up? My name's Chris Tejas. I'm a photographer and videographer based in Ontario, Canada. I mainly shoot portraits, events, weddings, basically photographing people. And the Nikon ZF is a really fun camera to photograph people with because people love the way it looks. And honestly, when you're shoving a camera in someone's face all day, multiple times a week, you start to realize that the interaction that people have with the camera that you're using actually is important. It's not just about the interaction you have, it's about the interaction they have. And in that vein, I would say that this is a very great camera. There's certainly some compromises with it in terms of ergonomics and a couple other things, and I've talked about that a ton. So if you want to see a million videos about the ZF, you can watch them on my channel. And really the big question about the Nikon ZF Silver is why? Why did they make this? Who was asking for this? Certainly with the black version, we saw a bunch of different colorways and those sold really well. People really liked that. The all blacked out version is beautiful looking, and the silver and black version is really beautiful looking too, but it's a very different feel. The thing is, they put this out, and I think this is signifying one of two things to us. It is telling us, well, first of all, we know it's telling us that this camera sold extremely well. I think the ZF is probably the camera that they can hang their hat on as saying, like, this camera is a really meaningful camera for the new Nikon. And by new Nikon, I mean like what people are thinking about Nikon now. This camera really is helping with that. It's amazingly adaptable for lenses because you have that super awesome flange distance on it, meaning that you can get tons of different types of lenses there. There's so many different adapters out there that are really small and awesome. There's so much that this has to offer. And I think people are really excited about this camera, and so it just keeps selling. So the question becomes, did they put out the Nikon ZF Silver because they are not planning on putting out a Nikon ZF Mark II for the foreseeable future or for quite a while, or did they put it out as a stopgap? And I think that those are the two kind of options here, obviously, and I want to kind of break apart those two. Let's assume our first scenario is that they put this camera out because they are not planning on putting out a ZF anytime soon. What evidence do we have for that? Okay, here's what I got. There are not a lot of those special edition lenses out there for this camera, meaning that f2 and f2.8, the 28mm and 40mm that they have in that special edition kind of colorway and feel that makes them feel a little more vintage. Those are the only two like that. There really aren't any other first-party lenses from Nikon that support this system. So you would think if they were planning on putting out more cameras like this, they would also be fleshing out that system in terms of lenses. So you would ideally probably want to see some higher quality small lenses coming out. So things like those 2 and 2.8 lenses, but in maybe a higher quality version made of all metal with an aperture ring. You would think you would see them investing in those lenses. And at this point, we haven't seen that. Now, the cycle for creating a lens takes time, so it's not like they can just do this overnight. And to be honest, I think if you were to look at it, you would say, okay, the Nikon ZF came out in 2023, we're now in 2025, so they had like a year of seeing what sales look like. They probably started to invest more, and that's why they came out with the silver. But also, if there are lenses coming, we're probably gonna see them in 2026. I don't know anything more than you know about that, but I would assume if they're planning on investing further into this camera, that means that they need lenses that support that. And I think what they would probably do is come out with some higher end f2 to f2.8 lenses, similar to the Fujifilm f2 to f2.8 lenses that they have. They're small, they're compact, they're all metal, they're beautiful. And I think that's what we would see if, in theory, we were seeing them try to push further when it comes to the ZF and the ZF Mark II. Next, I would say that the Nikon lineup is very flushed out overall. Like going from the Z50 Mark II all the way up to the Z9, and there's probably a Z9 Mark II coming out at some point soon. we have a lot of really great cameras, and there's kind of a camera for everybody. This vintage style camera is really just a Z5 II. So they have it in two different versions. Making a ZF Mark II, the question is, what would that encompass? Like, what would it have, and why would they necessarily do that if the camera is selling so well as it is? Like, yeah, it would be great if they would put in a higher megapixel sensor potentially, or maybe they would put in a faster shutter and like a stacked sensor or something like that. It would be great if they put in a tilt screen instead of a flip screen and make it more photocentric. That would be a great addition. There's little updates that we all want to see when it comes to the ZF, but if it's selling so well and they have so many other cameras, and the fact that they have this acquisition of Red, where they've just put out the Nikon ZR, and they're saying they have no plans to flesh that out more. So when we're looking at like the roadmap for them, we're like, okay, so there's like the Red cinema cameras, there's the Nikon ZR, there's clearly a gap there between something like the ZR, which is more content creator with a bunch of extra nice options in it, to the Red, let's say Komodo. There's a big gap there that needs to be filled. And they're saying they actually don't really have any plans to fill that right now. So if they don't have plans to fill that, why would they be working on like a ZF Mark II so fervently? So I think there's a case for the idea that there's just no ZF Mark II coming. And this might just be like a one and done thing. Also, if you look at it like with the Nikon DF and with the ZF-C, they haven't iterated on those, and those have been out for, I mean, the DF, what they wouldn't, because that isn't part of their mirrorless system, but they didn't iterate on that. The ZF-C, they still haven't iterated on. So stands to reason that there's no plans moving forward, potentially. But what do we have in favor of a Nikon ZF Mark II? Well, firstly, it sold incredibly well, which means there is a market for it. Secondly, there are things that need to be improved on it. So there's a good reason for them to actually go out and make another one, because I think people would buy the new one if they absolutely loved the first one and the second one had all the changes they wanted to see in it. Why wouldn't they? And the third reason I would say is because we're starting to see, like, that sensor that's in the ZF has been around for a little while now. It's been in a number of different cameras, and it's probably time for a refresh of that sensor, potentially. Maybe, you know, we get a new sensor that's slightly higher in the 33 megapixel, 30 megapixels, something like that. And I would see that going into a couple of new cameras. However, with the Z5 II being so recent, and then we have the Z6 III, which has the partially stacked sensor, do we really expect that they're going to put out like a new sensor, meaning that they're going to basically have to update a whole bunch of cameras? Because if you can buy the Z5 Mark II with a current sensor that we have, and then there's like a ZF with a newer, higher sensor, like a better sensor of some sort, you're kind of cannibalizing the Z5 II, because people are going to be like, well, I mean, there's this new sensor out that's better. Wouldn't I want that? I'll just go with the ZF, even though maybe I don't like the ergonomics as much, but or maybe I do, and you're choosing between ZF or Z5 II. I don't know. I think that that's actually kind of a hard sell. However, I'm supposed to be making a reason for the ZF right now, so what I will say is this. They will follow the money. So if there is a big enough cry for it, I think Nikon's pretty good about listening to their users, and I think ultimately it stands to reason that with the ZF selling so well, at some point we will see a ZF Mark II. It could be the reason that they launch a new sensor, or it could be like a second camera that comes out of that. I think there's even potential that we see something like a Z7 Mark III come out first, and then we see some like trickle down. Maybe we get that partially stacked sensor of the Z6 III into the ZF. That could solve some problems that people have with the ZF. There's a lot of opportunity with the sensor tech that's out there right now. So I think there's a fair reason. One second, my cat just jumped up. See him? What a good guy. And lastly, what I will say is that Nikon right now, because they don't open up their mount nearly as much as it kind of feels like they do, like there's really not that many companies that can make Nikon glass, I think there is a good reason for them to say, like, we're going to support this with more lenses and with potentially a Mark II, say 2027 or something like that, and they take 2026 to kind of fill out that lens gap that they have with the with those like smaller primes, and then that helps them to then launch the ZF Mark II. So I will say, if we see more small lenses for full frame coming out from Nikon, I think that's telling us that we're gonna see a new ZF. But in the meantime, we do have this bad boy, and I'm really excited about it. I love the way it looks. Obviously, it functions just like a ZF normally does. It just is silver and cute and fun. So all in all, I think that this is a great update from an aesthetic standpoint, and there's lots of reasons for somebody, if they're thinking about getting a ZF, now they just have way more choices, which is cool. One thing I do wonder is the fact that like I placed this order for this and I got it like 3 or 4 days later, which tells me that like maybe this colorway specifically is not as like sought after, I don't know. But the fact that I got it so quickly and it wasn't immediately sold out tells me that like maybe the ZF Silver is like, it's a cool, fun thing for people and it'll be kind of a collector's item, but it really is that stopgap. So I'm hopeful. I don't know. We'll see. What do you think though? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you have the new ZF Silver? Are you thinking about it? If it's your first foray into the ZF, I think it's a fun way to go if you like the silver look. It's something different, it's something neat, and the ZF is already such a stylish camera that it's kind of cool. And now this green will go really well with my like, you know, dark brown vegan leather moneymaker strap from Holdfast, which will look cool, and I don't know, it's fun, it's fun. And I took it on my first shoot and it was great, and the couple seemed to think it was a cool camera too. So, hey, making money, I guess. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.